I've been renovating this 168-year-old Philadelphia row home for the past 14 months. And one of my main design strategies for making this house unique and celebrating its history is exposing a lot of these awesome old materials. I'm going to start this week trying to finish up sanding for these old joists in the first floor living room space. After a little bit of testing, I found that the multi-tool with these little triangular sanding pads does the best job at being able to clean up the edge between the drywall and the joist, just stripping off all the layers of soot, grime, and dust through its 168-year history. Listen, I can already hear people saying, don't strip off the dust and the grime, that's what gives these old beams character. But there's spackle all over these beams, and the joint between the drywall and the joist just is nowhere near clean. And it's really hard to just sand part of the beam right where that joint is, where the spackle is. So I decided to give them all a uniform sand. I'm not going too deep, and don't worry, there's still plenty of character in these old beams. Oh, it's been 4 or 5 hours of sanding, but it's done. And I really like it. I think it struck a good balance between removing a lot of dirt, grime, and spackly mess, while also maintaining a lot of the character and history of the beams. I didn't want to sand them completely raw. Another task, I've been trying my hand at plaster work using a lime-based plaster to cover up this wall where we previously removed a chimney. I got a finish layer just up to this edge, so that I can remove this board so that I can finish the brick. So I'm gonna try to take this off and see if it pops off easily. I really hope so. Oh yeah, that turned out pretty nice. Just an FYI, for the most part, there's just a scratch coat on this wall. I'm gonna do a finish coat so it'll look a little bit better after that. Okay, I think we're ready to start sanding these beams. I saved these beams for a couple reasons. I could have just had a wide open space here, but one thing is sometimes you need contrast, and by keeping these beams low, that makes the wide open space where the skylights are even more impactful. Because this is a vented cathedral ceiling, air sealing is really important because any air leakage up and out into the roof can cause condensation. So I wanted to minimize penetrations up in the ceiling. So I can actually use these beams to mount. I've wired in here on 2 beams. I'm gonna do track lighting. So that way I have super flexible lighting in my studio space up here where it's really needed. And of course the final reason is just because these are original to the house. The old ceiling used to be mounted on these, and exposing old stuff is cool. So let's get it cleaned up. There were a ton of comments last week about using a better respirator for this type of work, and unfortunately I filmed this before I got those comments. In the future, I'm going to take it much more seriously. You guys gave me a good scare. After a long and dusty day of sanding, all the beams are ready for a little polyurethane. Gotta wait until I wrap up the other dusty tasks to do that. But they're ready and they're looking just delightful. It's really fun to see them cleaned up. So I've been doing some tests on this wall right here before I commit to a method of cleaning these bricks. And when I added soap and scrubbed these down, it left this light residue. And I've rinsed it with water a bunch of days, and then every time it dries out, it just still has this fog to it. So I'm gonna try using a 50-50 mix of water and vinegar. It's pretty tedious testing this stuff because you have to wait for the brick to basically fully dry before you're gonna be able to see if it works. Because when the bricks are wet, they look good, and then they dry out and they get that haziness to them. So while we wait for the test, I think we just have a little bit more dust to make a little bit more cleaning on a couple walls, and then we're pretty close to being able to vacuum, clean everything up, wipe down all the drywall, and vastly improve the working conditions here. All right, I did a once over on all the walls, just little touch-ups. I think it's in a good place. I'm gonna vacuum all the brick from the top down to the bottom so I can get a good look at it. Then we can move forward from there. Crazy that I had the whole house cleaned up for the inspections not too long ago. And just a couple weeks of working, just like tools get everywhere, dust gets everywhere, and we're basically ready to clean everything up, get all the dust out of here so we can polyurethane the beams and clear coat the brick and clean it off with soap and water. So really what needs to get done right now is just making sense of the mess up here. It's Wednesday and it's already like 3 o'clock. I did a little bit of cleaning in the morning, but this whole morning slash afternoon, the guys from Paragon Exterior were back. There was this issue I needed to fix. Basically, there was this like stain on the outside of the facade and it looked like water was leaking out of my gutter. I wasn't really sure what it was. So we investigated, pulled the gutter out, and the cast iron line that gutter went into was entirely clogged up with stuff. There was like a 2-inch copper pipe that was like 2 foot long, jammed into my drain pipe, and then a bunch of debris on top of that. Glad we got that fixed because moisture just damages brick, and I was sick of seeing that every time it rained. And because of the clog, I think the gutter actually filled entirely with water and then overflowed at the joint. While we were at it and while we had these ladders up, we also tore off the aluminum trim that was over top of my cornice. And the original cornice is actually in good shape and I'm just gonna get painted. And I thought that was original, but then we were drilling holes to create soffit vents for my vented roof, which is really important. And we realized that there's another cornice past that. So I think that cornice I exposed is actually probably from the 1920s. A lot of Philadelphia row homes were built during that time and have a similar type of cornice. And then my 1850s cornice was behind that. So really interesting having 3 layers of history. And unfortunately, we had to drill a bunch of holes into that old original cornice, which is really kind of sad, but honestly, I like the look of the newer 1920s cornice. So we're gonna keep that. And the ventilation, it's just a challenge. That's enough of an update. I'm gonna finish, hopefully, this plaster wall to end the day, and we're in good shape. I've been working on plastering this tiny bit of wall for the better part of 3 weeks. I can't even imagine these guys in 1850 who plastered the entire house. Crazy. I think we really take drywall for granted. Well, didn't finish, but this is about as far as you can get in like an hour and a half. You know, like I said in the beginning, it's not gonna be perfect. Definitely a little lumpy, but you know, it's fun. A little texture never hurt anybody, and it'll be nice to look at my first plaster wall when I'm sitting at my desk working up here. It's a new day. Time to finish this wall. One note, when I came, I realized this area was drier than the other areas, and there's a little crack here, and I just carved out the cracked plaster. And I'll just go back over that, and I think the reason is definitely because it dried out too much. For whatever reason, didn't get as much water. You can see kind of a little crack that's similar right there. All in all, you know, it's gonna be a textured wall, and I think that's fine.
Looks like we got a friend on the job site. Unfortunately, he's not here to help me mix plaster, but instead here to quote paint. So the number for the cornice, $2,000 to get that painted, and I just don't want to do it. I don't want to work up on a ladder that high. So I'm happy to leave it to the professionals, but the whole house, he said, would cost like 25 grand. So yeah, I'm going to be doing a lot of painting myself.
Just took a trip to the paint store, finally thinking about selecting colors, and I got 3 to test. I have a Moonlight White, Old Prairie, yeah, Vintage Vogue green. I also got a gallon of just a matte polyurethane for the old beams. Before we do the old beams, I want to try out some of these samples around where they're gonna go. So the dark green color I'm thinking of as kind of like an accent color. The living room area, I want it to be a little darker, a little cozier. So this kind of bump thing and the back wall in a dark green, and everything else will be like a hopefully warmish off-white. I'm also considering this green color up in the 3rd floor studio space, just on this back wall. And paint behaves really differently in different types of light, which is why I want to see it in a couple different places. We'll let those dry before we assess. And I'm also going to try out these white colors I picked out. And last but not least, we have Old Prairie, which sounds dated, and maybe it looks dated too. We'll see. A little bit creamier, a little bit warmer. And to be honest, choosing paint colors is really hard. They got too many choices. As you could imagine, these past 14 months working on this house has been absolutely brutal on my body. Before buying the house, I spent most of my days just in front of a computer like this doing desk work. And nothing quite prepares you for that shift from sitting down most of the day to doing manual labor most of the day. But one of the most important parts of keeping my body together and able to work week after week is getting a good night's sleep. And that's why I'm excited about the sponsor of the video this week, Helix. I've been sleeping on the same mattress for the past decade. I don't even remember where I got it. I know nothing about a good mattress and I had nothing to compare it to, so I really didn't realize how bad it was for my sleep. And once I got my Helix mattress, I noticed an immediate change. For one, I've never been a morning person. I find it incredibly hard to get out of bed in the morning. And I would have thought that a comfier mattress would make that problem worse, but instead I realized I just wasn't waking up well rested. Since switching to the Helix mattress, I find myself waking up naturally at 7 a.m. and actually feeling well rested, so I don't have to keep snoozing and lay in bed for another hour. And with the amount of work I need to get done, starting my days early has been incredibly helpful. Like I said, I really didn't know what a good mattress was or what to look for, and Helix made it super easy with their sleep quiz. You just answer a handful of questions and they'll pair you with the right mattress. When I took the sleep quiz, I was matched with the Helix Midnight Luxe, and I'm not alone in thinking it's incredible. It was ranked the best overall mattress from both Wired and Forbes magazine. Committing to a new mattress can be a little bit scary because of how much time you spend in that mattress and how much it affects your life. And Helix also makes this easy with their 100-day sleep trial, where you can test out your new mattress and return it if you're not totally satisfied. Thanks again to Helix Sleep for sponsoring this episode. You can head to helixsleep.com/ChrisHeitha or use the link down below to take advantage of their primetime sale, getting 27% off site-wide. Give it a try.
All right, my main job right now is just cleaning up. Like, there's tools everywhere and there's so many materials. It's like, I don't know, I kept all this stuff. I gotta find a place for it or put it in the trash. A door, like, am I gonna reuse it? I don't know. I gotta put it somewhere though. I think I gotta just throw away this tarp full of holes. There's all this wood back here. Just a lot of saved stuff. I got like the porcelain knobs and the old window weights, which I wanna keep. I'm gonna do hopefully something with it. And my collection of old nails. I love these things. But I need to find a better place than just strewn about. And here on the first floor, there's just boxes of stuff. These are light fixtures, cable, I don't know, just so much stuff. More stuff, more stuff. All this, old bags of mortar and stuff. And now that we're getting this place kind of ready for paint and doing a deep clean, I need to clean all these floors and everything. All this stuff just has to go. It's got to find a place, or it's got to end up out in my trash pile. So that's the goal. It's quite challenging working by myself because even little jobs like cleaning up can take like the entire day. I've never done anything like this before, so it's pretty easy to underestimate time on projects like this. And I'm not much of a planner, so I actually haven't really had much of a schedule, but after drywall, I did put a rough schedule together, and I was supposed to be doing tile, and my kitchen was supposed to be done by now. And I learned I'm just not gonna make schedules anymore, because without a schedule, you're never behind schedule. And that's how I like it. I kind of forgot about this little area. My table saw was just blocking it for the longest time. But as I'm prepping for paint here, I'm just seeing all of the little things that need to be resolved before we can paint. And a little explanation as to why this happened. This is my front exterior wall, but it just plastered directly on brick, and on the other side is the exterior of the house. And there's a little ledge. It's about at like this height. I think that it's just trapping moisture. It's not allowing the brick to breathe, and it's at the bottom of the wall, which is gonna get the most moisture because you have moisture coming up from the foundation, and also all the moisture that trickles down the facade hits that ledge and potentially gets behind the ledge. So now the brick kind of only can dry to the inside, so you have a lot of moisture coming out of this wall that's just forced all this plaster and all this paint off of the wall. It's kind of interesting to see all the layers here, and with old houses, there are always a ton of layers. So first you see the brick, that's the structure of the facade, 2 widths of brick, and then this looks like the first coat of plaster. And you can actually hear that down here, this plaster is separating from the brick. It has like a hollow sound to it, so some of this is gonna have to come off. So after that, you have another coat of plaster, and then this is the thin finish coat of plaster, and the paint just has all
worn away. And then up here, we can see it's probably about 5 layers of paint, pretty thick, that's running around. And again, because of the moisture here, the layers just slowly degrade. Here there's a little bit of moisture, so the paint came off, and then here more moisture, so the finish coat came off, and here the second coat under that finish coat came off. So that's all the layers of this wall here. As we're looking at this wall, I just want to make another note about the baseboards. So one thing, the vestibule wall used to be right here, and I suspected that the vestibule was added later, and this just further confirms it, that this baseboard was running past the vestibule, and it has a few less layers of paint. So you can see at one point we had some darker trim, they added the vestibule, then repainted the trim. I think I want to keep this old trim. I guess why not? Like, it already wraps around here. I'm gonna need to match it to wrap around this bump, and then we already have the trim wrapping around the fireplace. And I have a little bit more of the trim to extend over there. Might be a little challenging to match this exact profile for these areas I have to patch in, and it's definitely gonna be a lot of work cleaning up these baseboards with all the layers of paint and muck and whatever. You can see it's like separating here. So plenty of work on the baseboards too before we paint. And just interestingly, there used to be a radiator right here. So you can see this paint must have been before they installed the radiators. This paint was after the radiators, and this paint was before the vestibule. I think it's really interesting just seeing the history and the changes in the house just with these layers of additions and layers of paint. This baseboard is super loose, as you can see, and it's like sticking out from the wall, and I think it's because of just all this debris that has fallen down here. I'm gonna try to take care of that. And there's a chance that we do need to remove the baseboard so that we can patch the plaster behind the baseboard. But also I'm kind of wondering if it's okay that there's a bit of a void behind the baseboard here. Maybe we can just use some pressure treated shims or something to hold it in place. There's also the possibility that part of the reason why this plaster behind the baseboard popped off is again because of the moisture dynamics and this plaster not being able to breathe as much, being covered by this wood. Actually, kind of shockingly, this wooden baseboard is actually in good shape despite being exposed to moisture for the past 168 years. This isn't even what I thought I'd be working on today, but old houses always find more work for you. I'm gonna remove this baseboard, executive decision, because there's some bricks that are pretty bad behind here. I'm actually, in the background, I've been very worried about this front facade because there's a house down the block where all the bricks down below are spalling pretty bad. Also, my house, like I showed before, has this ledge out front. Like, they might have put that there because the bricks were spalling pretty bad. Putting it there just traps more moisture and really makes the problem worse. But I know I'm really worried to remove that block on the exterior of the house. And if it's bad on that side, I want to at least have peace of mind that the interior white is somewhat intact. So I might be able to replace a few of the bricks, but more than anything, I just want to see what's under here. It's kind of scary. We got an old header in here for the window, the basement window. Definitely moist, but surprisingly intact. The bricks are looking good, at least here. They might be worse down below in the basement. I think it makes sense right now because all this is hidden with the baseboard, and especially with this old wood header back here, I think it makes sense to remove this plaster so that there's a little bit more breathability. And then when I put in this baseboard, I might make a point not to caulk it so that there's some airflow and circulation that can dry out behind this baseboard. So I was digging behind the baseboard and vacuuming up all this brick dust from there, and from here it's pretty badly spalled. So I was worried it was going to be the whole stretch, but it's actually okay over there, which is very relieving. I'm going to see if I can do something to patch these spots just to add a little structure to the wall. Here's a look into the little hole I made. So this is the first width of brick, and we're looking at the back of the brick at the front of the house. And a lot of times the brick at the front of the house is like a veneer brick. It's harder, more durable, and that seems like the case here because these bricks up here are in great shape. These ones not so much, but they're still feeling very solid. So this is actually way better than I expected. Now, I don't know if these bricks here are spalled on the front face, but at least they're solid at the back face. And I was actually shocked to see, like, look at the sharp corners on that brick. That brick's in great shape. At least it's not the whole entire wall rotting out. And that's easy enough to patch right there. I want to try to patch in here too, but I can't actually get to this brick without removing this brick. So I'm probably gonna do that section first, see how it goes, and if it's okay, I'll tackle this one. All these bad bricks are like adjacent to a joist that's running right here, so there's not a lot of access to get back there other than taking this top course of brick out and then patching below. Got some mortar ready, and before masonry work, it's always good to test fit. And what I'm realizing is the mortar joints will be really, really thin. So if I stack both of these up, we have one mortar joint on the bottom, which isn't too much of a problem because on the right, it's sitting on a wood joist. Other good news is that the wood in this wall isn't rotted, which is kind of surprising. There's gonna be a bed here, then the brick, and then a bed of mortar above. So each bed of mortar is gonna be basically half of this size right here, which is about the size of this pencil. The trickiest thing with a patch like this is just getting mortar deep into the joint because you need to fill the whole joint so that load can be distributed equally. Many rounds of this. Bada bing, bada boom. Look at that front wall. That'll stay for another 168 years, right? Now, yeah, let's do this one too. right, we got it opened up. Good news, bad news situation. Good news, the backside of my facade bricks look really good. I'm honestly so excited to see that. Maybe there's a chance we can take the stucco off the exterior, but at least I know that there's some really solid, good structure here, which is important because when you're digging around in a brick wall, you don't want it to collapse. And I'm anxious when I stick my hand in here. I don't want to get 127 houred, that movie where the guy got stuck between a rock. Yeah, that's the good news. The bad news, look at this. It's deteriorating on both sides and there's like just a tiny bit of contact left. And that's the same on the other side. Tiny little brick left. So now I'm a bit worried because I don't know if I can take that brick out. Hopefully this width of brick is tied nicely into the facade brick that is in good shape, because otherwise if I take that out, it'll kind of cascade and the bricks will like cantilever up. So it's hard to fix that, and I want to get at least one of these bricks fixed. There's a couple that are still bad, but it's it's always a can of worms when you dive into this. The danger here is just once you start taking things out, you start chasing the problem, because you try to take a brick out and then another brick falls and then you got to remove that brick and another one falls. So you got to tread a little bit lightly and carefully. I also just want to mention a couple methods to try to stop the problem. One is repairing the damage, but two is stopping the damage from happening. So for one, this is all open to the basement. There's about 1 inch between the brick and a joist. And just running the dehumidifier should help a lot to dry these bricks out quicker. If water's getting in here, it's not drying out because of the humidity in the basement, and then it's freezing. That causes this damage. So if I keep the space warm, if I run a dehumidifier, that helps. I could also explore different coatings on the exterior that are breathable but hydrophobic, so water's not getting absorbed into the brick as much. And I could even build like a little canopy or overhang on the front to try to stop moisture from getting in here in the first place. I think I'll start chipping away at the one underneath, and maybe the other ones will just come down. There we go. All right. Now these bricks are really just cantilevered up here for the time being. There we go. We got one brick going in, sliding over. That'll support this brick here, which is in decent shape. I chipped off the corner. I shouldn't have done that, but whatever. And then another full brick right here. After a whole lot of prep, it's finally time to rebuild this thing. Man, this was backbreaking work. Been working low on my hands and knees, on my stomach, but we got it done. So here we're all set. Like these bricks down here are new as well, and those are sitting on good bricks. I was really glad to see it was just one row that was badly damaged, but right below that, solid base. So got some new bricks in there. There's one brick left. You can kind of just see it in that void. That's in bad shape, probably same condition where both sides are spalling. Hopefully just one brick shouldn't be a problem. It was just too invasive to try to take all this out so I could replace that one down there. Just gonna keep it and try to resolve some of the water issues with this wall to slow down the deterioration. Whew, well-deserved apple after that challenging task. Doing that brickwork, like I've kind of mentioned, a big part of it was to try to see what condition the facade brick is in. And that's the good news of this whole situation, is that it's in pretty good shape. Also, the spot I was working on wasn't great, but the other side of the wall seems to be okay. And this is really great news. Honestly, I've been super scared to even look at this wall. I'm really scared to take that block off the front of the house, just because worst case scenario is I have to tear down all the brick, tear down the entire front wall if all the brick right at the base is in bad shape. Maybe there's ways to like support it and redo the masonry underneath. I guess there probably are ways to do that, but that's expensive and dangerous as well, to try to rebuild the entire bottom of a brick wall. But from what I saw, I think the brick wall can stay as is with my handy dandy little patches. And boy, just looking at the back of that facade brick, it's much sharper, much cleaner bricks. And I so want to remove the stucco from the exterior. A lot of people have asked about it, and I'm still very undecided because they probably put the stucco up because the bricks were in bad shape, or they just needed to be repointed and they didn't want to repoint them. And then when they put the stucco up, they nail metal lath to the brick, and hopefully those nails are in the mortar joints, but I bet many bricks have nails through them. Yeah, I don't know, and once you take it off, it's a whole can of worms. So it's way safer, way cheaper just to keep the stucco, but we'll see. We'll see. Speaking of the exterior too, doing the cornice is $2,000. It's a lot to pay, but I'm really excited about it, to bring back that historic cornice. And I chose a semi-gloss paint, which I'm also really excited about, because that sheen will help you read some of the details like the OG curves, and I think it'll look really nice. And once I get that done, I'm gonna be really itching to do something with the facade. But I think realistically, that'll be a project for maybe this spring, you know, after winter and after I can move in, save some money up and dive into that project. But to wrap things up, this brick project totally threw me for a loop. Like, I was expecting to do a lot of cleaning and vacuuming today, and it turned into a very different type of day. But that's okay. That's the reality sometimes, and it's just nice to get eyes on things and to see the condition, even if it's not great, but doing what I can to make it better than I found it, just moving forward. So thanks as always for watching. I'll see you next week.